So I play a character called Danny. He is an orphan who inherits a massive hotel called the Hot Springs, and he is trying to find out who his family are. He doesn't have any family, so finds out suddenly he's got this family line. So he takes his friends along to this big hotel, and things aren't as what he would expect. It's a bit of a wrong turn, let's say. Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, this is the sixth film in the franchise. Were you familiar with the previous instalments, and what do you think fans will see from this one they maybe haven't from some of the previous films in the series?
Yeah, I was familiar with the other films. I watched the first one and then all the way through, obviously, just to get a bit of background. I love them. I think they're great. And I think this particular one, we have a completely new team on this film. The director, Valery Malev, was fantastic, extremely animated with the way he wanted us to perform. And I think all in all we got a really, really nice ensemble piece together. For me, it was my first feature film, so it was quite daunting for me to go into it. It's such a big franchise, you know, and but I was supported so well by my fellow actors, by Roxanne, by two American girls who couldn't make it today, called Aquila Zoll and Sadie Katz, who are doing incredibly well for themselves over there. And we had Harry Belcher, Billy Ashworth, Chris Jarvis, Joe Gamanara. So yeah, incredible team, and I think people can expect a very, very, very gory film. I watched it this morning and I hid behind my jacket. It's very bad. Specifically with horror, you can go to a bigger extreme. You know, with a comedy, you know, there's always going to be a slapstick comedy or, you know, comedy that's written in. But with horror, you've got so many outlets, you've got so many things that can happen. Specifically, like in Wrong Turn 6, I don't want to give too much away, but there are things that you just could not get away with in a rom-com. So yeah, it allows, for me and the other actors, it allowed us to have a huge outlet and really dig deep into our characters and go a bit crazy. Really, it was it's a great genre. I'm a big fan of horror, and so I'd love to do another one in the future. So yeah, it's great.
Before we leave us, have you got a message to fans?
Absolutely. Expect a ridiculously gory film. Lots of sex again, and some really, really nice performances. And sorry if I had to wait for so long, but it's definitely worth it.
How does it feel to be a part of this year's festival?
I would not have missed this for the world. I'm on my third horror film, and when Wrong Turn 6 said that we're releasing, you know, for Fright Fest, I was like, I have to be here no matter what. So it's been amazing. It's been amazing to see just the fans and the amount of support that the horror genre gets. So it's nice also to celebrate the work that I've been working on for the last 2 years, see it on the big screen, and 20th Century Fox gave us their private screening room last night, so I came down after having my wisdom tooth out. Big up to my dentist, Dr. Chu, in Liverpool, and he's really called Dr. Chu. And yeah, so it was a bit crazy last night. We went from dentist to screen. It was a bit of a horror day. I think with the horror genre, it's just about extremes. You know, I think that there's no kind of watershed, there's no kind of limitations. With horror, you get it all. You get the sex, the scares, the insanity. I mean, we push the boundaries as actors with horror genre like we don't do with any other genre. So it's really nice to kind of push myself as an actress with these kind of films.
Can you tell us a bit specifically about Wrong Turn 6 and your character? Where does she fit into things?
Wrong Turn 6 has been amazing because it's kind of gone back to the original Wrong Turn, like the basis, and we had an amazing stylistic kind of director. It was quite artsy, and I played Gillian, and she's, I don't want to give too much away, but she's kind of your typical neurotic, pain in the arse girlfriend. And no one would want to go out with Gillian, but you kind of see her kind of relax more as she arrives at Hot Springs, and the more freedom she has, the more vulnerable she gets, and vulnerability leads to one thing in horror film. I'm pretty laid back in real life, but something about, I swear, up characters I love playing. I don't drink, and I'm not really I'm quite low key, and I live quite a solitary life. I don't really do anything that's like out there. But I find characters so liberating that if I can push the boundaries and be really extreme with my characters on screen, I'm just a complete opposite though in real life. I'm usually tucked up in bed watching a Doris Day film. So yeah, it's nice to kind of just release all my inhibition and any passion or angst that I've got through my characters. So our director on Wrong Turn 6 was Bulgarian, he still is, and he was called Valery Milev, and he was absolutely amazing, a high energy kind of childlike guy. He was incredible to work with, but because of the language barrier, we had like 20th Century Fox producers that were American, we had the Bulgarian director, and then some of the cast were British, and I remember on the day of a really intense shoot, which was a 14-hour sex scene well, it's not 14 hours to watch, but it took 14 hours to kind of film it, and it was the sex scene into the attack, into the murder, and I remember the director coming over to me and he went, his English wasn't very good, he said, it was better than my Bulgarian, and he said, okay, Roxy, we go to shoot now, you... kissy, 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 sexy, 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 you die. And I was like, okay, I can do that. So that was a moment I'll never forget. There was also the moment where I was given like shot after shot after shot of fake blood, and by the end of it I was retching. I mean, the adrenaline was so high and the anxiety was so high that I was just you couldn't tell if I was acting or if I was genuinely terrified, because the baddies were so just gruesome and intimidating, and I'm lying there on the 10th hour of the shoot topless and just have a machete through my neck. It was definitely an interesting day. I got back to my hotel, I ordered room service, I tucked into a cheeseburger, and I FaceTimed my friend who does not do anything like this kind of industry entails, and she was like, "You did what today?" So it was funny. It was a great month shooting, and we made some fantastic friends on the shoot, and everybody just celebrating like that we've given the fans the sequel they've been waiting for. Definitely.
A lot of people talk about the horror genre and the fact that it is full of sex and increasingly graphic violence, and it does attract a lot of fans, but it also attracts some criticism. How do you feel about that as someone who's kind of involved? I mean, like shooting those kind of scenes, do you think it's a good or a bad thing that people watch that?
To be fair, I think everything worth its salt is going to attract criticism. I think it's better to be talked about than not talked at all. And with horror as a genre, you're pushing boundaries. It's not vanilla. It's something from that extreme to another, you know, whether it's how graphic the violence is, just the insanity, the implications. There's some gruesome things. I mean, there's pretty dark moments in horror films, but it's artistic, it's art at the end of the day. Whether it's sex scene, whether it's death, whether it's murder, implied rape, we're suspending reality, and if we're not telling it, it's happening anyway. If you just turn on the news, you're looking at things that are pretty gruesome and shocking on the news. So what we're doing is we're just enlightening the audience. You know, people get thrill out of horror films, so as long as they're talking about us, we're getting a reaction, it's making an impact. It's what film's meant to do, it's meant to evoke reaction. I can remember being terrified to go to sleep after watching Stephen King's It, and my friend Mark and I, we were so tiny and we watched this film, and it really affected us for like a year. We couldn't look at clowns. It was an impressionable age, and I just remember Stephen King's It being really hard to deal with. It really got in my mind, and I've honestly never been on a roller coaster since Final Destination 2 or 3. The one with the roller coaster, I've never been to a theme park since.
I think it was 3. I think the first one told us not to get on planes, the second one said don't get in cars, and the third one said whatever you do, don't go on a roller coaster.
I still fly, I still drive, but I'm not going on a roller coaster if I don't have to. It's weird, isn't it, the effect that films, not just horror films, but films have on us, because they do make an impression. Yeah, it's weird. It'd be interesting to see how people respond to Wrong Turn 6. I was absolutely in awe of the franchise. It's got such a following, such a fan base for a reason. So I was thrilled to be a part of it, and to get such an iconic death is pretty spectacular for an actor. Yeah, I always say go big or go home. So when I rang my mum and said got this part in an American film, it's quite sexy and it's quite scary, do it. Yeah. to people wanting to know what I'm doing next, I've got a John Godber play that I'm about to start rehearsing, and it's called On the Piece, and it's a comedy. So from horror to comedy, about bloody time, right?